What's going on, hackers? My name is Neil Bridges, host of Cyber Insecurity, here to present for you Day 12, Advent of Cyber, sharing without caring. Let's get to it. So for Day 12, Advent of Cyber, sharing without caring, Glitch Enterprises has been leaving traces of how their hackers have been accessing data from the system. You have found a unique server that they're using, okay? We need your help to find out the method that they've been using to extract any data. Let's get into it. Now, we've noticed that there's a particular IP address. You can see that one I indicated up here at the top, 10.10.224.82. It's generating unusual traffic. We highly suspect that that is Glitch Enterprises using it to access our data. One of the things that we need to do is we need to use Nmap to really try to discover what types of services are using. Now, for the sake of time, I've went ahead and run the Nmap scan indicated here. But what you can see is that they want us to scan the target 10.10.224.82. Want you to remember that Microsoft Windows hosts block pings by default. And so when you run an Nmap scan, one of the things an Nmap scan will do by default in every Nmap scan is to send out an ICMP packet to check to see if the host is up before it actually does its Nmap scan. And so because of the way Microsoft hosts are blocking those ICMP packets, we have to tell Nmap not to do that and actually to assume that that host is up. That's ultimately what the -pn switches for Nmap, is to assume that that host is up. And so we can sit here, we ran the nmap-pn against 10.10.224.82, and the question that we're getting asked is how many TCP ports are open. So when you look at the results of the Nmap scan, it'll tell you port, state, and service. You can see those headers here across the top. Port is going to be 22, and then it will tell you if it is a TCP or a UDP port, and then obviously the state being open and the service that's associated with. So very simple question. Wants to know how many TCP ports are open. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 in here. Submit. And we got the answer correct. So that's a pretty easy one. So now that we have the number of ports going, now we're going to look at network file systems. Network file system is a protocol that does allow the ability to transfer files between different types of computers and many different types of systems. This includes even different operating systems such as Windows and Linux. Now, consequently, that makes NFS kind of the de facto standard when it comes to sharing files across an enterprise network in most organizations. Now, we can look at our scan results here. We can see the types of scan results that we've got. We should be able to spot either the NFS or the Mount D, depending on the types of switches that we used inside of Nmap. We didn't use the SV option inside of Nmap, and so we're going to see our 2049 port listed as NFS right there. What port is detected by Nmap as NFS or using the Mount D service? We can simply put the port here, 2049. Submit. We got our answer there. Now that we've discovered an NFS service listening, let's check what files are being shared. We can use this using the command show mount. So here in the terminal, we'll simply run show mount, and we'll set the target. Now, we've used the -e option, which is also kind of a short format for the -- exports option to show all of the server's export list. So we can see here, this is the export list. This tells us what shares are actually currently listed on that server. This is the same thing as like if you're on a Windows system and you look at a network file share and it shows you all the share drives. This is basically the command line version of being able to do that. And so the question that we have is how many shares did you find? We have 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 shares, just like that. How many shares show everyone? This is what we refer to as the permissions, right? So similar to when you create a Windows file share, you can adjust the permissions on a Windows file share. You can do the same thing when you're viewing or looking at these types of NFS shares as well. And so the everyone permission means that everybody on the network who has access to it should be able to access this share. In this case, we have 3 shares that show everyone, just like that. Now, what good are shares? Shares are nice. They tell us that there is at least something there. But as good hackers, we need to be able to look at those shares, assess the data that's on them and make sure that we understand whether that data is something that can be exported of value, whatever the case is inside the scope of the pen test, right? So we're going to try to mount the shares that we've discovered. And so one of the first things we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and create a directory called temp1 here locally on my attack box. Okay. We can see that directory listed here. Now, similar to like when we would mount something on Windows, we're actually going to use the mount command. We're going to have a target server that we're trying to mount to. And then we need to specify one of the directories that we want to try to mount to. Now, we're going to try to mount to this My Notes because it's got a pretty awesome title. We're pretty interested in what some of those titles are, but let's try to mount this My Notes title that we have right here. Now, what we would need to do is, so that's the target host machine IP address. That's the target share. We need to give it a mount point or a mount location on our local box. We're going to use that new directory that we just created in TMP1. You can see that we get access denied, and we can verify that. We can see that according to this, no one has access to My Notes. It's not open to everybody else. So the access denied is expected in this case. We can see that the mounting has failed because of that. Let's try again with a different mount. Let's try again with something like share. So we'll come up here. We'll simply change this My Notes out with share. We got no error message back. And so we can go into the temp1 directory, and we can run an ls in here, and you can see that we have 2 text files, meaning that we have successfully mounted that drive. We are now on a remote computer through a file share that is open to the network. There are 2 text files here. We can open those text files using text editors such as Nano, or we can less them out, right? Just lots of different ways that you can look at the contents of that text file. What is the title of the file? 2680-0.txt. I'll use a cat, 2680-0.txt. Oh, we can see that there's actually a lot there. So let's use the less command as what was suggested. Looks like this is probably the title, Meditations. Let's try that out. Answer is correct. Awesome. It seems that the Grinch Enterprises has forgotten their SSH keys on our system. One of the shares contains a private key used for SSH authentication. What is the name of that share? So let's quit this. So it seems like they've forgotten their SSH keys. There's a couple different ways that we could do this. For the sake of simplicity, let's go ahead and let's refresh our share list so that we know what shares that we have open here. We can see that these are the list of shares. We've obviously already checked out /share. We can simply make a new directory, temp2, and we can use a similar command that we used before. We can check, let's check confidential, because that looks like it probably has some juicy stuff in it, and we can mount that one over to temp2. We cd to temp2, ls that. We have another directory for SSH. And we can see that we have our ID_RSA key in there. So what is the name of that share? Confidential. Just like that. Awesome, fantastic. Okay, so obviously the confidential directory has the ID_RSA. Now what it wants us to do is to calculate the MD5 sum. So we can simply do that by using MD5 sum on the file name, ID_RSA. There is our MDI5 hash. Got the MDI5 sum copied over. We will then hit submit. And it is correct. From there, we have successfully helped figure out the secret to what data they were moving at Greenwich Enterprises. Thank you so much for checking out Day 12 of Advent of Cyber, and I hope you enjoyed it.